Hi, welcome back to 3D Modular Madness. Today, I wanted to talk about coffee, and specifically coffee and 3D printing. So we're going to talk about this, a bunch of stuff that I've 3D printed and designed for my coffee setup. To start, I wanted to just talk about how I got here. So a little under 2 years ago, my family and we moved to Barcelona from the States. And so we had to sell a lot of our stuff. And so I sold my espresso machine, and I took with me the only thing I had for making coffee, which is this, the Wacaco Picopresso, which is a handheld espresso making machine, but it can do full-size double shots in this little mini portafilter. Now, it's designed to be portable or take camping and so forth, but it has become my mainstay. I have made 2 to 3 double shots a day in this for 2+ years. And as such, I've gotten quite good at this, but I've also figured out a lot of things about how to use this effectively in my daily routine. The other thing I wanted to share, which is a more recent acquisition, is this, which is the, let's see if I can even show it there, the Subminimal. Oh, that shows it pretty good. The Subminimal Nano Foamer, which really does make better foam for lattes. It's still a little tricky, definitely not as easy as a steam wand, but it has allowed me to, when I really want to, make a latte and be reasonably happy with it. So with all that, let's go back to this. Now, I was looking for projects once I got my 3D printer, trying to figure out what I could use it for. And initially, I didn't have any of this gear. I think, 100% of what you see in front of you here is 3D printed. So I had this, and let's just show real quick what happens after you use it. So after you use it, this is of course wet. This is wet. This is the spreader, whatever they call it. And the lid and the internals of the device is all wet. And so you have all these things, and they need to get dried. There's actually several other parts, but these are the parts that you actually need to use on a daily basis. It also has this, which is a very small dosing funnel that fits on top here. And it comes with this, an actually fairly weighty way to tamp. It's not deep enough, so you actually have to tamp once, and then you have to remove the funnel, and you have to tamp again in order to get your coffee tamped. But this is what I was using in my daily setup. So I believe the first thing I went after was this piece. This is very shallow, and when you stir it and so forth and you try to dose it, I was always making a mess. So the first thing I did was I worked on this, which was quite tricky to get just right, because it fits exactly over this lip, down the side. And the other problem with this, which you cannot see very well, is it has a small gap between this and the basket, which leaves a little bit of grounds around there. So when you take it off, it always makes a little extra mess if you didn't accidentally spill in the first place, which I always did. So I designed this perfectly so it would have no gap. And this is printable without any supports. Not true. It needs supports for that inner ring, but it needs very minimal supports. So it goes like this, and it fits directly on. And in fact, it just barely comes off, but you can hold it on very easily. And I designed the top to fit the dosing funnel of my home coffee grinder. So I can basically put it on top, flip upside down, and I'm perfectly dosed. So I thought that was a great use of a 3D printer. So now I have this. But I was always just kind of tossing these things around, leaving them lying around my coffee station in the kitchen, and was not terribly pleased with that result of the process. So the next thing I designed was these two pieces. So I designed these together. I decided to use a Gridfinity bottom. So I got some existing Gridfinity bottoms, and then I worked on these designs. Now what I wanted was, one, I wanted it to be pretty small. I only wanted it to be two 2x2 Gridfinity bases. And I wanted them separate so I could orient them different directions. And since I was eliminating this funnel, I don't need that anymore. This was immediately a problem because it especially doesn't fit in my dosing funnel. So we'll get to that in a minute. But that leaves me with just these 4 items that need to dry. So in fact, I made this, which has, if you can sort of see here, it's asymmetrical on the two sides. I try to make things as symmetrical as possible, but in this case, in order to make it fit perfectly, I ended up having to design it asymmetrical. And one of the things that's important is for it to dry. So I have like slopes here that slope down. I've got aeration coming in from the side. And I just wanted to do everything I could to make sure there was plenty of airflow so it could dry. So here's what it looks like. It fits quite solidly. It's not sliding side. I can hold it like this and like this, so like it really stays on there pretty well. So now we have this, which I'm just going to go put over here onto our Gridfinity base. This one was a little trickier because I had to design 3 different slots that perfectly held these things. And these things are a little bit weird. This has a weird curved lip to it. And my first design, my initial designs wasn't tight enough, and so it kind of fell off sideways. But it turns out if you make it just deep enough, so this smaller curve hits the edge, totally solid. And it's symmetrical. I can put it in either direction, and I do often put it one way or the other. Similar with this one, I was able to do the same thing as long as this inner circular area is touching. It works just fine, so I can put it either direction. Works great. Lastly, and the few designs that I saw, one, there's a lot of additional gear, and they had it all splayed out, which you just don't need it all the time, but it made their layout like 50% bigger. I would decide to focus on the only stuff I need daily. They also separated the basket from the portafilter for drying, which is fine, but there really is plenty. I mean, the portafilter is going to get all the airflow it needs, and there's a reasonably good gap between the portafilter and the edge, and that area doesn't generally get wet anyway. So I was like, you know what, we can dry that as a unit. So I designed this sort of 2-tiered shape. This one I did end up making one directional, but it fits very solidly because I had to make sure that this portafilter, which normally like this, it'll fall right out. So I had to make sure that was secure, and that just ended up being the best way to do it. So I ended up with that setup. Pretty happy about that. All right, let's advance to this problem. So I have my dosing filter on here and my tamp no fit. So I went and I measured my tamp size, and I went and found a picture of a portafilter, literally just imported that image into Shaper and traced it and gave it a print. And in fact, it did fit quite well. And this one is pretty lightweight. Let's actually see how much this one is. 20 grams. I've since sort of figured out that the minimum weight I want for tamper is about 45 grams. But the other problem I found was it was not deep enough. So when I tried to push it in here, I still had to go, like my fingers had to go uncomfortably deep into here in order to get an adequate tamp. And it didn't really fit my hand very well. It was kind of uncomfortable. My fingers didn't reach the bottom. I mean, it's fine. I mean, whose tamp fits their hand anyway, right? But then I was like, aha, 3D printer. And if I have a 3D printer, then I might as well try to make it fit my hand. So I was like, okay, well, I can just, tweak some measurements and print it again, which I could. I could have done that. But I realized that there's a lot of different measurements I want to tweak on this. And if I printed this whole thing as a unit each time, I'm going to go through a lot of plastic. I decided to go with a 2-part system. So we got a screw, and then I've got a handle with the screw inside it. And designing this screw so it worked without any friction took forever. It needs a little bit of friction. It needs the right amount of friction because you want it to hold in place when you're using it, but you want to be able to adjust it without, breaking things. So it needs to have some friction and it needs to have some smoothness. But the goal is that I could adjust this to the point where my fingers matched exactly so I could push down very securely and solidly. Plus the bottom, I could make the bottom exactly the right size, so you notice this is deeper. So this is the version I actually use. It now allows me to push in, and I don't have to push in about that far, which is quite comfortable. I'm using the Bamboo Labs wood PLA filament, which works great. Feels really nice, and it lets me to grab it. And one thing I've discovered is that a lot of people hold tamps like this. So they curl their fingers around, and they push with their thumb and the awkward side of your finger. Have you tried to push something with the side of your finger? It is not comfortable. people do like this and they push their hand like this. I mean, just look at that. I mean, it's a little bit better when it's in front of you, but you can see that that's pretty awkward. And why do they do that? It's because no one's tamp fits their hands. Every tamp has a fixed size. Well, mine isn't. Mine, not only can you adjust the height, but I further went ahead and made, I think I got 5 or 6 different sizes of the handle. So you can find one that has the right sized handle for your hand. You can adjust the height up and down by adjusting the screw. And then you can pick the tamp, like here's 58.5, the size that fits your machine. So with all that configuration, what I found is I was able to make the tamp exactly fit my hand, which means I could push with my fingertips securely and solidly. And in fact, even at this angle, I can very easily push my table down. I can push way more pressure than I need to do a decent tamp. And the point is I'm pushing with my fingertips, so I have very precise control for doing my tamping. So that worked out great. So I got that all done, made that work. And then I wanted to complete my station, so I made this. This one was a quick little design. I just made this sort of double ring. And I wanted people to be able to use it even if they weren't using my dosing funnel, so it actually fits that just fine. And you can do, this one's just a little loose, but it still looks great. You can stack your Wacaco branded stuff here and it still looks fabulous. Or you can do my dosing funnel and my tamp, looks fabulous. So that's what I had for quite a while. And it took me a long time to sort of get the final tamping stuff released, but I had this for a while. But then further, I've been working on my Hexfinity stuff, and I made the the Hexfinity to Gridfinity adapters, because I knew there would be some good use for them. So let's take a look at what happened here. So I wanted something for storing my coffee beans. I found this model on the web, and I will go provide a link to it, but it was bigger than this. So I had to scale it down. And surprisingly, even though it's threaded, scaling it down worked. Often when you scale things down, it doesn't work. So I had to scale it down, and I had to tweak the print parameters to get it all work well. But it wasn't too bad. And I really like the top of these. I just like it's a good grip. And I did a little bit of air pressure testing. It does hold air. So I believe it's keeping my beans pretty fresh. They seem to be fresh. And the thing about hexes and Hexfinity is that hexes are much more efficient at storing circular items. And so I designed a base for these. And if you notice, this base has almost no wasted space around this circular item. If I was doing this on Gridfinity, it would have quite a bit of wasted space in the corners. But instead, I made this store Hexfinity base, which I haven't really released any store Hexfinity yet, but they have this bottom, which makes them hyper flexible for where you can position it, because you can position it off by a half. So I made this base, which works fabulously. And let's go ahead and take some more of this stuff out of the way so we can see what's going on here. I also made this, which I guess we'll get back to in a minute. So I'm going to set that aside. Set these aside. So this is the Hexfinity to Gridfinity adapter. So if you see here, so this is Hexfinity. Although you notice this is not a square piece of Hexfinity. So I designed a Hexfinity base too. I designed one where you can just delete the squares you don't want directly in your slicer and then get the shape that you want. I did this because I actually store this in the corner. Maybe you can't quite see it there. You can sort of see it here. This is a corner. I store it in the corner in the kitchen. And so I don't, if it was square, it would have to stick out quite a bit more and be wasted space. I wanted something that would fit into the corner. This works fabulous for that. Then I use my Hexfinity to Gridfinity adapter because I've got Gridfinity up at the top, the front 2 rows. But in the back, I want Hexfinity. And this has my quad Hexfinity base, which again lets me, Gridfinity base, which allows me to set things on offsets by half. So I can put that off by half and put that off by half, that off by half. And I've got my extensions here, just one length extensions to fill out the grid that I need. And then I can add in these plates here And we will do this in just a second. And that plate, I did all of this so I could have a big plate. And the reason why I did a big plate was for this. So I was already designing this, which I'm about to release for the Air Hexfinity, Roll Air Hexfinity. And the whole point is to make it a lightweight way to raise things up high, which works great, super lightweight. But I wanted it to be able to be used storing this. So by default, if I make it this high and you put this in, it's just going to tip right over. It has like no reason to stay up. And if it's a normal Hexfinity, it's going to be that way. It's just going to roll over. But I designed this new system, which I call Hex Lock for Hexfinity. And this is a special piece where it's a solid piece between these two, but I've upgraded it now. The new version doesn't need a special piece. It just has an insert, which you can use, which I don't have an immediate demo for it here, but that's fine. You'll see. I'll be releasing Hexlock. Hexlock will be able to be used with all of the new normal pieces. It's going to be awesome. But the point being is with Hexlock, now this is quite stable. It doesn't tip over because now it is attached to the bottom. And further, once you put it on here, these bases, and again, because that they are this store Hexfinity base, I can put them like that and like this. And then when I put the beans on here, I put weight on top of that large one. So now it is totally stable. I could make it a little bit more stable so it doesn't rattle, and I might do that at some point. But for right now, it's totally fine. Then pretty much you have seen all of the different parts. It goes all together and now forms this really nice station with all of my parts that I use on a daily basis for making coffee. And I think it looks pretty great. This is decaf, this is calf, and this is my espresso machine. So the only thing you're not seeing here is my grinder. My grinder sits on the side, but it is also black, so it looks nice with the rest of this. That's pretty much how it's been going. So I'm going to be releasing these, what has been released. So I've released all this stuff up front. I've released this base that you can make custom Grid Hexfinity bases. It's also lightning fast. It's the fastest and lightest rigid base on MakerWorld. And I've released these adapters. I have silently released this updated base plate. A plate is 7 millimeters high. So this one actually is available in Hexfinity now. It's a little different than my earlier ones, but I've updated the models. So I think this one's on one of the packs. One of the packs has this size plate. I'll be releasing it in another grouping soon, but this plate is available. This I'll be releasing soon, but it is not released yet. And these are just about ready to be released. These bins, they work great. And there's 3 sizes. This is the tallest size, which is also great because it holds, I'm gonna guess this wrong. I think it's 250 grams. I think this is 250 grams of beans. It like perfectly holds 250 grams of beans, which is what I need because that is the size of a bag of beans here in Spain. But there's 3 different sizes of these: small, medium, large. And this is the largest. And they all fit in the same base. And they fit very nicely. So that's been my coffee journey so far. I am working on some other things. I took this with me recently to Venice. Great visit. Venice was everything I hoped it would be and more. And I missed my drying rack. I missed my ability to put my stuff up for drying. Now, I don't want to travel with this extra piece for drying. That seems a little excessive. But what I realized is I can design a case for this. It comes with a case. I have the case over there. But I can design something that's about the same size as the case. But when it opens up into a drying rack. That's my goal. Working on that one. So that'll be fun. For the few people out there that are using the Wacaco Picopresso, that might be fun for you too. So this is modular design with coffee. We got a modular tamper. We're using Gridfinity for modularizing our storage here. We're using Hexfinity back here for circular related things. So you see again how I'm using this thing right here is more or less a circular shaped thing. And I've got squeezed in here between the 2 bigger circles in a layout that is much nicer than it would be possible to do with Gridfinity. So this is where mixing Hexfinity and Gridfinity can be very effective. So if you're interested in printing any of these yourself, I will share links to each of them. There is going to be a link to the trays that organize the Picopresso, the adjustable tamp, which will work for any espresso machine, and the dosing funnel, the perfect fit dosing funnel. We'll link to that. I also will link to the Hexfinity base that you can adjust and customize however you want, and it's also super fast and super light to print. I will link to the Hexfinity to Gridfinity adapters, and I will link to the 2 unreleased things when they come out, which is the bins where my coffee are, plus the Hexfinity base for those, and the stand, which is, look for it, it's the Hexfinity Air. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to call them columns or stackers or pillars. Naming. And I think that is it for today. So thank you so much for spending your valuable time with me, and I would love to hear your comments on coffee making intersected with 3D printing and what your experiences have been. I think it's a fun way to merge 2 of my hobbies, and I look forward to coming up with new ways I can make my coffee making experience even more enjoyable.